What would you do if the life you were living wasn't your own? If all the wealth, luxury, and privilege in the world couldn't fill the emptiness inside you? This is the story of Lily, a millionaire's daughter, who grew up in a world of glittering chandeliers, private jets, and endless opportunities. To outsiders, her life seemed perfect. But behind closed doors, Lily felt trapped, suffocated by her father's expectations and the weight of a life she never chose. One fateful night, Lily decided to break free. She left behind the gilded cage of her family's estate and embarked on a journey to rediscover herself. With nothing but a small bag and a heart full of hope, she plunged into an unknown world, unprepared for the challenges and the remarkable kindness she would encounter along the way. Lily's story is one of courage, self-discovery, and the unexpected ways that strangers can impact our lives. It's a journey that reminds us all that true wealth isn't measured in dollars or diamonds, but in freedom, purpose, and the connections we make. Whether you've ever felt the pressure to conform or dreamed of starting over, Lily's story is one we can all relate to. So, join me as we dive into this life-altering tale of a runaway millionaire's daughter and the stranger who saved her. From the moment she was born, Lily was groomed to be perfect. Perfect grades, perfect manners, and, most importantly, the perfect heiress to her father's billion-dollar empire. Her childhood was a carefully curated display of opulence, designer dresses, private tutors, and vacations on pristine beaches. To the outside world, Lily was the luckiest girl alive. But perfection came at a price. Lily's father, Charles Whitmore, was a self-made tycoon whose relentless ambition left no room for failure or personal freedom. His love for Lily was real but conditional, tied to her ability to meet his towering expectations. Every decision in her life, from her education to her relationships, was dictated by him. Their relationship began to unravel when Lily turned 23. She had just graduated from an Ivy League university, her father's choice, of course, and was expected to join the family business. But Lily wanted more. She dreamed of being an artist, of painting bold strokes across canvases, not spreadsheets. Charles dismissed her aspirations as childish fantasies. "You're not a starving artist," he scoffed. "You're a Whitmore. Start acting like it." The argument that followed was explosive. For the first time in her life, Lily dared to push back. "You may have built this empire, but it's your dream, not mine," she shouted, her voice trembling with years of suppressed frustration. That night, as the mansion fell silent, Lily packed a small duffel bag. She took only what she needed: some clothes, a notebook, and a small stash of cash she had been quietly saving. Then, with one last glance at the life she was leaving behind, she slipped out the back door. The streets outside her gated community felt both terrifying and exhilarating. She had no plan, no destination. All she knew was that she couldn't stay. Lily boarded the first bus heading out of town, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. For the first time in her life, she was free. The bus rumbled along the dark highway, each mile taking Lily farther from the life she had known. She stared out the window, her reflection blending with the unfamiliar landscapes beyond. The thrill of escape began to wane, replaced by the weight of uncertainty. Her destination was a small, sleepy town she had chosen at random, a place where no one would recognize her last name. The bus came to a halt in the early hours of the morning, and Lily stepped onto the cracked pavement of a nearly deserted station. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and freedom. Lily found a rundown motel nearby. The neon sign flickered ominously, but it was cheap, and that was all that mattered. She handed over a portion of her cash for a week's stay and collapsed onto the lumpy bed. For the first time in her life, there was no staff to cater to her needs, no plush bedding or breakfast trays. It was humbling, but also oddly liberating. The next morning, reality hit hard. Lily ventured out to look for work, knowing her funds wouldn't last long. With no resume that didn't scream rich girl and no real-world skills beyond her polished manners, her search was met with skepticism and rejection. By the end of the day, her feet ached, and her pride was bruised. Finally, a diner on the edge of town gave her a chance. The owner, a middle-aged woman named Marge, seemed to take pity on her. "We're short-staffed," Marge said. eyeing Lily's delicate hands. You ever wait tables before? Lily shook her head. No, but I can learn. And learn she did. Her first shifts were chaotic. She spilled coffee, mixed up orders, and struggled to balance trays. But the regulars were patient, and Marge, though gruff, showed her the ropes. Slowly, Lily began to adapt. For the first time, she earned her own money, and the satisfaction was unlike anything she'd felt before. Still, challenges loomed. Nights at the motel were lonely, and doubt crept in. Had she made a mistake running away? Could she truly make it on her own? These questions gnawed at her, but she refused to give up. Her resolve was put to the test one evening when her old car, a beat-up vehicle she'd bought with her dwindling cash, broke down on the side of a deserted road. As she stared at the smoking engine, panic began to set in. She had no idea how to fix it, and the nearest town was miles away. Just as she was about to break down herself, a pair of headlights appeared in the distance. A pickup truck pulled over, and a man stepped out, a tall, rugged figure with grease-stained hands. Need some help? He asked, his voice calm and steady. Lily hesitated. She had always been warned about strangers, but there was something genuine about him, something that made her nod and say, "Yes, please." The man introduced himself as Jack, a mechanic from the next town over. He quickly assessed the problem, tinkering under the hood as Lily watched nervously. Within minutes, the car roared back to life. "You're good to go," Jack said, wiping his hands on a rag. "Where you headed?" "Nowhere, really," Lily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack studied her for a moment before offering a small smile. "Well, wherever that is, take care of yourself." He tipped his hat and drove off, leaving Lily standing there, shaken but oddly comforted. Little did she know, this brief encounter would mark the beginning of a pivotal chapter in her journey. The encounter with Jack lingered in Lily's mind as she drove back to the motel. For the first time since she'd run away, someone had offered her help without expecting anything in return. It was a small act of kindness, but it planted a seed of hope in her heart. The next day, as she served coffee and pancakes at the diner, she couldn't stop thinking about Jack. Who was he? What kind of life did he lead? And why did his sincerity feel so rare? Later that week, as fate would have it, Jack walked into the diner. He was there to pick up a takeout order, but when he saw Lily balancing plates with a determined yet frazzled expression, he couldn't help but smile. "You again," he said as she brought him his order. Lily flushed. "Yeah, small town, I guess." Jack raised an eyebrow. "You don't seem like you're from around here." For a moment, Lily hesitated. She wasn't ready to share her story, not yet. "Just passing through," she said simply. Jack didn't press further, but over the next few weeks, he became a regular at the diner. Their interactions were brief at first, a polite exchange of pleasantries, a few jokes here and there. But as Lily grew more comfortable in her new life, she found herself opening up little by little. One quiet afternoon, when the diner was nearly empty, Jack sat at the counter and struck up a deeper conversation. "So, what's your story?" he asked, his tone gentle but curious. Lily stared at the coffee pot in her hands, debating whether to tell the truth. Finally, she took a deep breath. "I left home. I needed to get away from everything." Jack nodded, his expression understanding. "Sometimes you gotta leave to figure out who you really are." That simple statement hit Lily harder than she expected. For years, she had been defined by her father's expectations, by the world's perception of her as the perfect millionaire's daughter. For the first time, someone seemed to see her as just Lily. As the weeks turned into months, Jack became a source of quiet support. He encouraged Lily to step out of her comfort zone, to embrace the small-town life she was slowly growing to love. He taught her how to change a tire, helped her fix the creaky motel door, and even showed her the best hiking trails in the area. One evening, while sitting on a hillside overlooking the town, Lily found herself confiding in Jack about her past. She told him about her father's controlling nature, the life she had left behind, and her fears about what the future held. Jack listened without judgment, letting her pour out years of pent-up frustration and doubt. When she finally stopped, he said, "You're braver than you think, Lily. Most people wouldn't have the guts to walk away from a life like that." His words resonated deeply with her. For the first time, Lily began to see herself not as someone who had run away, but as someone who had chosen to take control of her life. That night, as she lay in her small motel room, staring at the cracked ceiling, Lily felt a shift within her. She realized that she didn't need to have all the answers right away. What mattered was that she was finally living life on her own terms. This turning point marked the beginning of Lily's transformation. She started to see the beauty in her surroundings, the friendly faces at the diner, the simple joys of a sunset, and the freedom of waking up each day without a rigid plan. For the first time in years, she felt alive. With her newfound perspective, Lily began to embrace the life she was building for herself. Each day presented its own challenges, but now she faced them with determination and a growing sense of purpose. At the diner, Lily had gone from fumbling with orders to becoming one of the staff's most reliable workers. Marge noticed the transformation and gave Lily more responsibilities, including managing the diner during the busier shifts. "You've got a good head on your shoulders," Marge told her one day. "You just needed a little time to find your rhythm." Despite her progress, Lily's journey wasn't without setbacks. One afternoon, she received an unexpected visitor, her father's lawyer. He had tracked her down and arrived with a message from Charles Whitmore himself. "Your father wants you to come home," the lawyer said, his tone firm. "He's willing to negotiate on your terms, but he insists you take your rightful place in the family business." The words stirred a mix of emotions in Lily. Part of her wanted to believe that her father had finally changed, but a deeper part of her knew better. She could feel the pressure creeping back, threatening to undo everything she had worked so hard to achieve. "I appreciate the message," Lily said, her voice steady. "But my place isn't there anymore." The lawyer looked surprised but nodded, leaving her with a business card and a final remark. "If you ever change your mind, the door's open." After he left, Lily felt a wave of doubt. Had she made the right decision? Was she really strong enough to keep going on her own? That evening, she confided in Jack about the encounter. He listened intently, then said, "Lily, you've already proven you can stand on your own 2 feet. You don't need his approval to live your life. The question is, what do you want?" The simplicity of the question struck her. For so long, she had been consumed by what others wanted for her. Her father, society, even the expectations she had placed on herself. But now, she realized, it was her turn to decide. From that moment, Lily doubled down on creating the life she wanted. She started taking art classes at a nearby community center, rediscovering the passion she had once suppressed. Her paintings were raw and unpolished, but they were hers. Each stroke on the canvas was a declaration of her freedom. However, as Lily's confidence grew, so did the challenges. The town was small, and whispers about the runaway rich girl began to circulate. Some people judged her, assuming she had abandoned her privileged life out of arrogance or recklessness. One particularly difficult day, Lily overheard 2 customers at the diner speculating about her. "Bet she'll go crawling back to Daddy the moment things get tough," one of them said with a sneer. The words stung, but instead of retreating, Lily chose to confront them. She walked up to their table, her voice calm but firm. "You're right," she said. "I did leave behind a life of privilege. But what I'm building now, this life, is mine. And I'm proud of it." The customers were taken aback, and though they didn't apologize, Lily walked away feeling a new sense of empowerment. She had stood up for herself, not as a millionaire's daughter, but as Lily, a woman determined to chart her own course. Jack continued to be a steady presence in her life, but their relationship remained platonic. He encouraged her to keep pushing forward, reminding her that growth often came from the hardest challenges. One day, while hiking together, Jack asked, "Have you ever thought about turning your art into something bigger? Maybe even selling your work?" Lily laughed at the idea. "Who would want to buy my paintings?" "More people than you think," Jack replied. "You've got something real, something people can connect with. You should give it a shot." His words planted a seed of possibility. Over the next few weeks, Lily worked tirelessly to improve her skills, pouring her heart into each piece. When she finally felt ready, she gathered the courage to display her work at a local art fair. The response was overwhelming. People admired her paintings, drawn to the raw emotion and vulnerability they conveyed. By the end of the day, she had sold several pieces and received offers for custom work. For the first time, Lily felt like she was truly in control of her destiny. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving, building a life that reflected her passions and values. Months later, Lily stood in her small but cozy apartment, surrounded by canvases and art supplies. The sunlight streaming through the windows illuminated the room, casting a warm glow over her latest painting, a piece that symbolized her journey from captivity to freedom. Her life had transformed in ways she never imagined. The girl who once relied on her father's wealth for every aspect of her existence was now an independent woman who earned her living through her passion. The art fair had been a turning point, opening doors to opportunities she hadn't dared to dream of before. Galleries in nearby cities expressed interest in her work, and her confidence as an artist grew with each passing day. At the diner, Lily was no longer just an employee but a valued member of the community. The regulars who once whispered about her now greeted her warmly, and Marge often joked that she couldn't imagine the place running without her. Still, Lily hadn't forgotten the lessons her journey had taught her. She knew that life wouldn't always be easy and that challenges would continue to arise. But she also knew that she had the strength to face them, no matter how daunting they seemed. One evening, Jack stopped by her apartment with a bottle of wine to celebrate her latest gallery feature. As they sat on the floor, laughing and reminiscing, Lily realized just how much he had come to mean to her. "You know," she said, her voice soft, "I don't think I would have made it this far without you." Jack smiled, his eyes warm. "Maybe, but the truth is, you did all the hard work, Lily. I just reminded you of what you were capable of." Their friendship had been the anchor she needed during her most uncertain moments, and while neither of them had spoken about the possibility of something more, the connection between them was undeniable. The following week, Lily received a letter from her father. It was handwritten, a rarity for Charles Whitmore, and its tone was uncharacteristically vulnerable. "Lily," it began, "I didn't understand your decision at first. I thought you were throwing away everything I worked so hard to build. But now, I see that you were building something of your own. I'm proud of you, even if I don't always show it. If you're willing, I'd like to start over, not as business partners, but as father and daughter." The letter brought tears to Lily's eyes. She wasn't sure if she was ready to reconcile, but for the first time, her father's words felt genuine. She decided to take her time, knowing that forgiveness was a process, not a destination. As the seasons changed, Lily's life continued to flourish. She found joy in the simple things, painting in her sunlit studio, sharing meals with friends, and exploring the world around her. She no longer felt the need to prove herself to anyone. Looking back on her journey, Lily realized that running away hadn't been an act of rebellion. It had been an act of self-discovery. She had left behind a life that wasn't hers to find one that truly was. And as she stood before a crowd at her first solo gallery opening, the applause ringing in her ears, Lily felt a sense of peace she had never known before. She had finally found her place, not as a millionaire's daughter, but as herself.